What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean Strickland fires back at Khamzat Chimaev for comments. Sean Strickland has officially been booked to fight Dricus du Plessis at UFC 312 on February 8th. But if you thought that could mean Strickland's and Khamzat Chimaev's feud could flicker out, think again. If you've followed the middleweights, you know that they trained together at one point, and they seemed kind of buddy-buddy, but in more recent months, with both men calling for title shots, the verbal jabs and sparring sessions are starting to fly. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Well, more recently, Chimaev warned Strickland via social media by asking where he's at, and he also alluded to their previous sparring sessions, which Khamzat claimed went his way. As expected, it wasn't long before Strickland fired back. LMAO, sorry, I don't speak Chechnyan. Kadyrov, loosen up his leash? You got any Bitcoin scams to peddle? You hiding from any dictators? I love how will try to talk to me. Bro, you're not a man. Character level dog. Crypto scams. Yourself out to Kadyrov for cars. Fled to the Middle East when the pimp hand got too strong. Stay in your lane, Swedish man. And when a fan asked if Chimaev can fight in the US, Strickland claimed the answer is no. No, he can't. And that says a lot. We let everyone in America. This guy has the moral character of dog fake Muslim. And Strickland also had this to say when a fan noted the former champion had previously said Boers goes hard in training. He goes too hard on low-level guys. He's ragdolling a 3-1 guy, lol. So now we'll wait to see if Chimaev responds and where this all goes from here. If Strickland reclaims the middleweight title in February, all signs point to Chimaev facing the American in what will be a pretty intense grudge match. Speaking of UFC 312, Strickland also recently shared his comment via social media following the fight's announcement. Time to bring back From Freedom to Australia. Deny, depose, defend. No idea where they're saying is from or who said it, but I like. Real catchy, but no idea. Do you see Strickland avenging his previous loss to DDP, or do you think that du Plessis will extend his middleweight reign? Dricus du Plessis sends a warning to Sean Strickland on Twitter. Dricus wrote, "This time, they won't call it a robbery. They'll call it attempted hashtag prepare to be amazed." He's referring to his last fight with Strickland, where Sean claimed it was a robbery and he should have won. Who do you think will win the rematch? Let us know in the comments below. Merab reacts to UFC 310 altercation. One of the big stories coming out of UFC 310 was not about the action that went down in the cage. It was an incident that involved Merab Dvalishvili, his teammate Denis Buzukja, and someone in the stands. Footage showed Buzukja chucking punches at the person, and given Merab has had incidents with fans before, the scuffle was initially reported as that, a dust-up with a fan. But following the event, Merab showed the following video, which claims that the person involved was in fact someone who is an associate of Umar Nurmagomedov's camp.
And friend of Umar and Dagestani's. You can see Merab walking filming his friend Aljo when Guy grabs his arm and starts insulting him with phone in his hand. Turns out he is not just fan from Kazakhstan but a provoker, and as Merab said, he was insulting him.
You're gone, bro, you're gone.
Later that day, Umar posts stories with the guy and his squad. And there is even more pictures from years ago with him and Dagestanis. Media says Merab got into with a fan, and the guy himself says Merab said something about Shavkat, while Kazakhstan media promoted it like Merab disrespected Shavkat, and the guy is hero. But obviously, this is not coincidence. Merab is good with Shavkat, and all this happened in 15 seconds. This was just Dagestani's dirty trick and provocation.
Not surprisingly, during the post-fight presser, Dana White was also asked to comment on the incident. Here's some of what the UFC CEO had to say.
Merab's fighting people in the stands, okay? Merab would get in a fight in the middle of the fighter section. That's why we moved him over to the left. So I wouldn't say that any of these guys are afraid of anybody or any fight. But, you know, fighters are a paranoid bunch. You know, there's always some conspiracy against them, whether it's us or other people. Or we make fights that people want to see. They win or lose the fights on their own. But they are conspiracy there. They always think that somebody is against them, and maybe that's what they need to do to have that mental thing to go out and do what they do. He's my mini Strickland without the mouth.
Yeah, if incidents like this are already happening, what's the fight week for UFC 311 going to be looking like? Merab is scheduled to fight Umar at the January 18th event. Belal Muhammad goes off on UFC security. After Shavkat Rakhmonov locked up a fight with Belal Muhammad on Saturday by defeating Ian Machado Gary, he called Belal Muhammad into the cage. Because after all, there's nothing like a good face-off in the octagon to promote a fight, yeah? Well, at first, things didn't go according to plan, as security wouldn't let the welterweight champion into the cage. Eventually, Muhammad was allowed in, and he and Shavkat exchanged a few words. During the broadcast, Joe Rogan assumed that Belal had not been let in because security didn't know who Muhammad was. And while talking to the Schmo after the event, Belal laid into security for not immediately letting him in. Yeah, I don't know. They thought I was pulling a Merab Darishvili, like hopping over and going crazy or something like that. No, he called me, bro. If someone calls me into the cage, I'm gonna go in there, right? I don't think the security heard it. They didn't realize what was going on. They thought I was gonna go in to attack him. I'm just like, bro, chill. All the issues with security aside, Muhammad also spoke to TNT Sports after the event. When asked to comment on the fact that he now knows Rakhmonov will be his next opponent, Muhammad made it clear he's pumped to fight the rising star. I'm excited. I was supposed to fight him. I was studying, watching tape on him. Now, he gave me an extra 25 minutes to watch. I just want to get back in there. I'm hyped. I can't wait to show the world there's levels to this, and I'm the best in the world. Based on how Rakhmonov looked against Gary, has your opinion of how he'll do against Muhammad changed? Who do you see winning this fight? Alex Pereira predicts Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. A lot of fans and observers believe that Jon Jones could receive his first legitimate loss if and when he throws hands with Tom Aspinall, but Alex Pereira apparently isn't in that camp. As you surely know by now, for months, there's been talk about if and when Jones and Aspinall will fight. Jones has repeatedly shot down the idea that he needs to face the interim heavyweight champion, prompting calls that he's ducking Aspinall. But following Jones's win over Stipe Miocic at UFC 309, Bones did leave the door open to the fight, provided that the UFC is willing to break the bank for it to happen. Well, recently, Pereira spoke with TNT Sports, and the light heavyweight king was also asked to make his prediction for Jones Aspinall. Here's what Politan had to say. I think Jon Jones has a lot of experience on his side. Some people say Aspinall this, Aspinall that, but it comes down to experience. Jon Jones is a seasoned guy. He's been there, so I think he wins. Do you agree with Pereira's prediction? Do you think Bones will prove to be too much for Aspinall, even though he's closer to 40 now than 30? Dana White reacts to PFL situation. Dana White hasn't held back recently when he's been asked to comment on the PFL and what he thinks of the promotion's business model. Well, now that several of Bellator's top fighters are protesting that the PFL has not been booking them fights, White believes it shows the promotion's in serious trouble. Recently, notable Bellator fighters like Corey Anderson, Patchy Mix, and Patricio Pitbull made headlines after they called on the PFL to book them fights. When the PFL purchased Bellator, it was spun by the PFL as a move that would solidify the organization as a legitimate competitor to the UFC. More recently, however, there's been speculation that Bellator could be shuttered, and questions remain what will happen with the promotion's champions and stars. So when White was asked to comment on the situation following UFC 310, he said this.
Listen, the last couple months we've been talking a lot about the PFL, you know. They're canceling a lot of shows. I know that a lot of guys that are supposed to fight aren't fighting. And, I mean, you guys know what's going on. I'm not, you know. When you see that start to happen, you're running out of money. Things aren't looking good. And you're going to have people that want to jump ship. You know, these guys want to fight. You have a very limited time of opportunity when you're a professional athlete, and even less when you're a fighter. So I'm sure you're going to see a lot of that, and we'll see how this plays out over the next several months going into 25.
Even if you're a fan of the PFL product and want to see the promotion do well, it's definitely concerning that it's not booking world-class fighters like Pitbull and Mix to compete. Demetrious Johnson rejects Alexandre Pantoja's call-out. Following Pantoja's impressive win over Kaya Sakura at UFC 310, the flyweight champion called for a fight with the legendary Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. But as it stands right now, it looks like the odds of Mighty Mouse coming back to the UFC are slim to none. After his submission victory, Pantoja likely raised eyebrows throughout the game by calling out the retired former UFC champion. But Johnson was watching the event live, and when the Brazilian champion tabled the challenge, DJ was quick to shoot it down.
Why would I do that? Boys, the bank count sitting nice and good. 38 years old, 11 consecutive title defenses. Champ ain't coming back.
And via his YouTube channel, the legend also had this to say while explaining why he's not interested in fighting again. My New Year's resolution in 2024 was that I'm not going to ever fight again. I'm not going to accept any fights that come on the table. I'm saying no, so when Alex Pantoja called me out, everyone's blowing me up asking what I think. Guys, I'm retired. I have no interest to fight anymore. I'm not the best flyweight in the world anymore. My black retired, and I'm happily retired. I ain't gonna be no Jose Aldo. I ain't gonna be no Donald Cerrone coming back to fight. There's no point coming back to fight. Johnson also took to social media to emphasize he's done fighting by noting that he turned down an opportunity to fight for $2 million. When Pantoja was asked to comment on Johnson's post while talking to the media, the Brazilian argued it's about legacy, not cash.
Demetrious Johnson is not about money, brother. It's about see who's the best of the best, you know.
You can definitely understand why Pantoja is hoping to secure a fight with Johnson. Not only is Johnson the consensus greatest flyweight of all time, Pantoja is quickly running out of contenders to fight. But it certainly doesn't sound like Johnson's interested in fighting again. Even if he did want to and wish to return to the UFC, it's likely his contract with one would be an issue. George St-Pierre undergoes surgery. George St-Pierre's storied career has been wrapped up for several years now, but recently the Canadian star reported he underwent surgery to fix an issue with his arm. GSP has not competed since 2017, when he added the UFC's middleweight title to his resume by choking out Michael Bisping. The former welterweight champ left the door open to an all-star fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov for quite some time, but ultimately that never happened. Well, more recently, the 43-year-old shared this post and video. The legend also took the opportunity to remind folks of how important your health is.
Hey guys, I just had a shoulder surgery. I know that losing the use of my arm temporarily really sucked, but in the same time it makes me realize how lucky I am because I have friends that have disabilities who have to face challenges like this on an everyday basis. So this was an old wear and tear injuries. Over the past year, I had an incredible friend that helped me with different treatment that made me much better and stronger. However, the core of the problem is mechanical and I had to get it done once and for all. So I'm looking forward to a good, speedy recovery and thank you for the support.
GSP has always been a class act in and outside of the cage. Here's hoping his recovery goes well. Daniel Cormier revealed that Shavkat Rakhmonov went into this fight against Ian Gary with a torn MCL in his knee, which is a torn meniscus. He claims this is why Shavkat did not look like himself.
This fight tonight, because Shavkat Rakhmonov did not look like himself. Even though I learned after that he had an injury. I think he might have tore his MCL going into the fight. Granted, with a torn ligament in your knee, you're not going to look like the that you look like in fights prior.
Ciryl Gane revealed that he broke his foot in his fight with Alexandre Volkov and shared an x-ray of the broken bones. He wrote saying, "It wasn't just my toe, but also both metatarsals that gave way at the start of the first round. Needless to say, there was no foot left, but we didn't give up and fought with them."